Books of the Bible, 1 Corinthians. So part of God's story is a book in the Bible called 1 Corinthians, and it goes like this. The Bible is made up of all kinds of stories, poems, and letters, and it's all about God. The Bible has two parts, the Old Testament and New Testament. 1 Corinthians is in the New Testament, right after Romans, but before 2 Corinthians. We call it a book, but it's really a letter, written by a man named Paul to a church or a group of people who follow Jesus in a city called Corinth. Even though it was written to the Corinthians a long time ago, Paul's letter can still help us today. Corinth was a place where most of the people didn't worship God and had never heard of Jesus. But when Paul told them how Jesus was God's son, how he loves us and even died to rescue us, lots of Corinthians decided to follow Jesus and join the church, which was awesome. Later, Paul went on to start churches in other cities, and over time, the Corinthians forgot some of what Paul taught them, and they started living the way they lived before they followed Jesus. What they said they believed was different from the way they lived. So Paul wrote them a letter to help them remember that following Jesus affected every part of a person's life. First, Paul reminded them to have unity. Unity is when people or things are brought together because they have something in common. But Paul wasn't the only teacher in the early church. There was also a man named Apollos, who was really great at speaking in public. Some people in the church liked Apollos more than Paul, and others liked Paul more than Apollos. But Paul said it was foolish to fight about things like this, because it distracted people from who they should really be following. Jesus. Paul said Jesus was the one who really helped the church grow, even if it looked like people were doing it. In a garden, it might look like people are making plants grow because they put seeds and water in the ground, but really, God makes things grow. In the same way, it wasn't Apollos or Paul who was really in charge of the Corinthian church. Jesus was. So anything good in their lives was really because of God. Because of that, Paul said the Corinthians needed to live like Jesus was in charge of their lives. In fact, following Jesus was even more important than their freedom, talents, or wealth. Paul wasn't trying to make them feel ashamed, but he did want them to change their behavior to be more like Jesus. They should solve problems together with unity, gentleness, and love. It wouldn't always be easy. Sometimes it would take a lot of training and self-control. Paul said living like Jesus was like running a race, and they should run in a way that will get you the prize. But they shouldn't just care about them as individuals, they should care about everyone in the group. Everyone has different gifts and abilities God has given them, and in a church, those different abilities and gifts can work together. Paul said it was like a body. There is one body, but it has many parts, but all its many parts make up one body. The foot isn't more important than the hand, and an eye isn't more important than an ear. All the parts do different things that help the body function. What really brings a community together, Paul said, was love. Paul said, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not brag. It is not proud. It does not look out for its own interests. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It never gives up. The three most important things to have are faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of them is love. Paul knew God is love. That's what Jesus showed us when he served and healed people, died on the cross, and came back to life. And if we believe in Jesus, the best way to be like him is to live in ways that show love. And that's a little about the book of the Bible called 1 Corinthians. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Paul wrote 1 Corinthians. It's in the New Testament. Following Jesus changes how we live. It means we care more about what Jesus says than what people say. We grow because of God. We run to win a prize. We work together as a body. What keeps us together is love. And that's a part of God's story.